annual lecture, the University of Johannesburg establishes an enduring platform that honors an extraordinary legacy of leadership while creating space for meaningful dialogue on the issues shaping our society, our continent, and our world. We are especially honored this evening to welcome an exceptional gathering of leaders from government, academia, the diplomatic community, business and civil society, alongside members of the UJ community. Allow me to acknowledge our Chancellor, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and Chancellors of other universities present, members of the University of Johannesburg Council, our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Letlokwa George Mpedi, and Vice Chancellors of other universities present. Our distinguished guest speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso, and members of the diplomatic corps present. Member of the Executive Council of the Gauteng Provincial Government, the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Dada Morero, the Deputy Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Loyiso Masuku, members of the UJ Executive Leadership Group, leaders from business and civil society, members of the academic community, UJ staff and students, members of the media, and all our distinguished guests. Thank you for honoring the University of Johannesburg with your presence this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the formalities of this evening, we begin through the power of music. It gives me great pleasure to invite the renowned Imilonji-Bantu Choral Society to set the tone for this special evening. Please join me in welcoming the Imilonji-Bantu Choral Society.
scene, but in the silence, you can almost hear the faint echoes of 20,000 footsteps marching toward Pretoria.
Indeed, Ruby. 70 years ago, can you believe it? On the 9th of August 1956, those footsteps reshaped the trajectory of our nation. It takes to face a repressive system, to stand at the union buildings and to leave petitions at the door of power when every odds were stacked against you.
They didn't march in anger alone. They marched with deliberate, dignified resolve. Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, Sophia Williams de Bruyn, women of different backgrounds, united by a singular, unyielding truth.
Hoopy, those leaders saw beyond their own present struggles. Their main demand was clear and uncompromised: an end to the brutal pass laws that sought to restrict their freedom of movement, divide their families, and strip them of their basic human dignity. They were asserting that no law had the moral authority to diminish a woman's humanity.
30 minutes of absolute silence outside the union buildings.
Yeah.
And then the chant that echoed through generations.
Yeah.
Watinta abafazi, watinta imbokodo, uzofa. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. But VC, as we stand here, 7 decades later, what does that march mean for us today, on this day, today?
Hoopy, I think that it serves as both a mirror and a compass. It mirrors how far we've come, but more importantly, it points to how far we still must go. Today, the past laws may be gone, but women still face systemic inequality, economic exclusion, and the pervasive scourge of gender-based violence. The 1956 March reminds us that freedom is not a static destination. It demands constant stewardship, protection, and action.
And action, lessons to be learned, VC. And that's where our responsibility as a university lies, isn't it?
True.
Beyond sports, academics, and campus life, what does this anniversary demand of the University of Johannesburg?
You see, Hoopy, UJ was built on the values of transformation, societal impact, and inclusion. We mustn't forget what those brave women fought for in 1956. Dignity, freedom, and justice is embedded in our institutional DNA. I can tell you that any day. When we educate young women, when we push boundaries of research, when we harness technology and innovation to solve real-world human challenges, we are honoring their legacy every day.
So every time a young woman walks across our graduation stage or leads a research project or shapes policy, she carries that same spirit.
Precisely. The march didn't end in 1956. The baton was simply passed down. Here at UJ, our duty is to ensure that every student who steps onto our campuses understands that they carry the strength of those rocks. We don't just remember history, we build upon it to ensure a more just and equal future.
VC, to the leaders of 1956 and the leaders of tomorrow, we remember.
We remember, Hoopy, and we honor them through our actions.
Thank you to the Imilonji Bantu Choral Society for that beautiful this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, another warm round of applause. Distinguished guests, it is now my privilege to invite the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Johannesburg to officially welcome us this evening. Professor Letlhokwa George Mpedi leads UJ at a time when universities are increasingly called upon not only to produce knowledge, but to ensure that knowledge contributes meaningfully to society. Under his leadership, the university continues to strengthen its position as a proudly African institution of global excellence, committed to academic excellence, innovation, transformation, and societal impact. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Johannesburg, Professor Letlhokwa George Mpedi, to deliver the welcome and opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Professor Refilwe Pasane Mafuya, Chancellor of the great University of Johannesburg, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, Chancellors of other universities present this evening, members of the University of Johannesburg Council, our distinguished guest speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso, and members of the Diplomatic Corps present, members of the Executive Council of the Gauteng Provincial Government present, Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Dada Morero, Deputy Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Loiso Masuku, Vice Chancellors of other universities present, members of the UJ Executive Leadership Group, leaders from business and civil society, members of the academic community, staff and students of the University of Johannesburg, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to the great University of Johannesburg. Thank you. As you just saw in the video of Hoopy and I, we call it the VC Chilling with Hoopy. It's a series. We have made great strides in recent years, ladies and gentlemen, yet there is still much to do. That short film, ladies and gentlemen, captures in a few minutes what could easily fill volumes. It is a story of struggle, of leadership, and the determined work of building a more just society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is fitting that we reflect on that journey tonight. In this, the 70th anniversary year of the 1956 Women's March to the Union's buildings. 70 years ago, 20,000 women stood together and declared in one voice that they would not be silenced. That march, ladies and gentlemen, did not end at the steps of the Union buildings. It continues in different forms in every generation that refuses to accept injustice as inevitable. It is with great pride, then, ladies and gentlemen, that UJ establishes the Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka Annual Lecture. This is a flagship platform dedicated to advancing dialogue on matters of national and global importance. This lecture series, ladies and gentlemen, honors a daughter of our soil whose life's work embodies the very spirit of that 1956 march with unflinching leadership and unshakable commitment to gender equality and a vision of societal impact that reaches far beyond our borders. Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka's legacy, ladies and gentlemen, as a freedom fighter, as a deputy president of this republic, as the global voice of UN women, and now, of course,
as our Chancellor, reminds us that transformation is built by people willing to lead when leadership is hardest. Ladies and gentlemen, universities do not exist apart from society. We exist because of it and for it. As an institution, UJ takes seriously its responsibility to be more than a place of learning, to be a part or to be a site, apologies, of societal impact, where scholarship meets lived reality and where the next generation of leaders is shaped by the courage of those who came before them. At this university, we say, we don't want to be the best university in the world, but we want to be the best university for the world. People say, Mpedi, what do you mean by that? In a nutshell, we say, we don't want to be good for nothing. As an institution, UJ takes seriously its responsibility to be more than a place of learning, to be a site of societal impact where scholarship meets lived reality and where the next generation of leaders is shaped by the courage of those who came before them. This lecture, ladies and gentlemen, this lecture series is one expression of that commitment. It is a space where we can interrogate honestly and rigorously how far we have come as a society and how far still must travel. It is against this backdrop that we welcome Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso to deliver our inaugural lecture. Ambassador Mtintso's life has been one of extraordinary service as a freedom fighter, parliamentarian, diplomat, and tireless advocate of gender equality and social justice. The parallels between her and our Chancellor are stark, and their friendship has spanned decades. Forged in the shared trenches of the liberation struggle and sustained through years of championing women's rights on the global stage. Few are as qualified as she is to speak to tonight's theme, Women Driving Societal Impact, Legacy, Leadership, and the Future, ladies and gentlemen. I have no doubt that what will follow this evening will challenge us to ask what role each of us play in carrying this legacy forward. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor, for those words of welcome and for setting the context for this important evening. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the centerpiece of the inaugural Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka annual lecture. It is my distinct honor to introduce our guest speaker, a woman whose personal journey is deeply intertwined with South Africa's struggle for freedom, democracy, gender equality, and social justice. Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso was born in Soweto in 1949 into a family shaped by both hardship and political consciousness. Financial circumstances forced her to leave school at an early age and enter the workplace. Yet, determined to pursue her education, she completed her matric through Damelin College and later continued her studies at the University of Fort Hare. It was at Fort Hare that her political activism deepened through the South African Students' Organization and the Black Consciousness Movement. She subsequently continued her political work in King Williamstown alongside leading figures of the Black consciousness movement, including Steve Biko, while also working as a reporter for the Daily Dispatch. Her commitment to freedom came at an enormous personal cost. Under the apartheid regime, Ambassador Mtintso endured burning orders, detention without trial, solitary confinement, and severe torture. Following the death of Steve Biko in police custody in 1977 and intensified state repression, she left South Africa for exile in 1978. In exile, Ambassador Mtintso joined the African National Congress and its military wing, Umkhonto weSizwe. After undergoing political and military training, she rose through the ranks to become an MK commander in Lesotho under Chris Hani. She later headed the ANC's Regional Political Military Council in Botswana and became the ANC's first chief representative to Uganda. Following her return to South Africa in 1992, Ambassador Mtintso participated in the Convention for a Democratic South Africa, CODESA, negotiations which helped pave the way for South Africa's first democratic elections. She subsequently became a member of South Africa's first democratic parliament. In 1997, she was appointed the first chairperson of South Africa's Commission for Gender Equality, becoming a leading voice for women's representation and participation in political, economic, and public life. That same year, she was elected Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress. Her service to South Africa would later extend across continents through a distinguished diplomatic career. She served as South Africa's ambassador to Cuba, Italy, Romania, and Spain, and as High Commissioner to Malawi and Namibia, concluding her most recent diplomatic posting in 2025. Throughout these assignments, she played an important role in strengthening South Africa's bilateral relations, advancing economic cooperation, promoting cultural diplomacy, and deepening South-South partnerships. Distinguished guests, from a young woman forced by circumstance to leave school and work in factories, to a student activist, a journalist, a freedom fighter, an MK commander, a participant in the negotiations that helped usher in our democracy, a member of our first democratic parliament, a champion for gender equality, and a diplomat who has represented South Africa across the world. Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso's life is itself a story of courage, resilience, leadership, and societal impact. Her journey speaks profoundly to the theme of this inaugural lecture, Women Driving Societal Impact, Legacy, Leadership, and the Future. It is particularly fitting, ladies and gentlemen, that a woman who has spent a lifetime breaking barriers and serving her country should deliver the inaugural lecture bearing the name of another extraordinary African woman leader, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to invite to the podium our inaugural guest speaker.
Rector, I don't know, Vice Chancellor, how chancellors and deputy chancellors are trained. Probably we should do something about how they should read CVs or bios so that people don't get bored with a long. Well, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Dada Murera, Dr. Ndema, Chairperson of Council, Professor Litlokwa George Mpedi, Vice Chancellor and Principal, Dr. Ndema, Chairperson of Council, and members of Council, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Mlambo and Ngcuka extended families, leaders of government, academia, business, and civil society, members of the university community, distinguished guests, students, comrades, and friends. Let me begin by expressing my deepest appreciation to the University of Johannesburg for the honor of delivering the inaugural Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka annual lecture. For me, it is a particular privilege and a responsibility because the lecture carries the name of one of South Africa's most distinguished daughters, a woman whose life has been dedicated to justice, equality, dignity, and the empowerment of women. I wish to offer our profound gratitude to the great University of Johannesburg for this initiative. It is fitting that this institution should be the first to honor Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka. It is symbolic that the lecture is being held at the University of Johannesburg. UJ is an internationally recognized university with a distinctive identity embracing inclusivity, diversity, and transformation in various forms. The university is recognized as one of the leading institutions of higher learning in South Africa and on the African continent. Amongst the areas the university is recognized for is its track record in using research and innovation for societal impact and sustainability. This includes the critical areas of poverty alleviation, something that resonates with Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka's philosophy of life. Congratulations, UJ, for initiating a lecture of a special kind. As the Vice Chancellor likes to say and has just said, UJ is not the best university in the world. It is the best university for the world. It is significant to have this first Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka lecture on the 70th anniversary of the monumental Women's March. It is those more than 20,000 lodestars that dared us to dream. They dared us to dream of an equal world where there's no exclusion, no oppression, or indignity. That generation had the courage to change the course of history. Indeed, it is a generation that symbolizes a lingering passion and an unforgettable past that marks the unbreakable African spirit that survives against all odds. These odds were always stacked against all Africans, particularly the African women. The 1956 March was a culmination of the women's movement that began in the early 20th century with major anti-past campaign emerging in 1913, led by Charlotte Maxeke in Vryhoek location. Often, when we reflect on women driving societal impact, we often think of presidents, ministers, chief executives, and diplomats. But societal impact begins long before titles. It begins in homes, in communities, in churches, in stokvels, in burial societies, in the ordinary spaces where women gather and quietly organize society itself. As an African proverb reminds us, I quote, "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world," close quote. And today, as I stand here, I can say women silently rule the world, without, of course, sounding like Beyonce. Quietly and regally, as Phumzile sits here today, as we honor her, she knows that the path she is on is laid by those before her. They enabled her to reach the heights of civil society leadership, cabinet, academia, diplomacy, business, and intellectual and international organizations. The Xhosa proverb summarizes it very well when it says, "Inyathi ibuzwa kwabaphambili." Now, I don't know how to translate that in English, but it loosely means guidance or wisdom should be sought from elders and experienced people who have already traversed that path. The distance from Union buildings in 1956 to the leadership of UN women is shorter. It was bridged by women such as Lillian Ngoyi, who dared to imagine a different future. It is those bridges that are important. Women like Dr. Phumzile form sisterhoods. As sisters, they remind each other that leadership is rooted in solidarity. As mothers, they teach each other the importance of nurturing future generations. As partners, they demonstrate commitment, resilience, and shared purpose. And as leaders, they show each other that compassion and strength are not enemies, but powerful companions. She has carried that sisterhood spirit into the highest offices of government and the global stage. She believes that true leadership is grounded in humanity, ethics, humility, and an unwavering commitment to others. Perhaps that is why many South Africans view Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka with such affection. She has demonstrated that leadership is never simply about holding office. It is about creating possibilities for others, opening doors for those who follow, and ensuring that your success becomes a ladder rather than a monument. She has internalized Charlotte Maxeke's call that, I quote, "This work is not for yourselves. Kill that spirit of self, and do not live above your people, but live with them. And if you can rise, bring someone with you," close quotes. Whenever I speak about women and leadership, I'm reminded of the many gatherings of women where the real business of society takes place. Not NECs, not parliament, not cabinet, certainly not social media. I'm talking about Stokvel meetings. This is a space that no consultancy designed, no investment bank advised, and no algorithm engineered. It emerged organically from our communities, shaped by necessity, trust, and solidarity. Long before the language of financial inclusion entered policy frameworks, and long before formal financial institutions understood its significance, the model was already enabling South Africans to save, invest, support one another, and build resilience. It is significant that South Africa's Stokvel economy is estimated to comprise more than 800,000 Stokvel groups, involving approximately 11 million members, who collectively save and circulate between 50 and 50 billion rands annually. Just think about it for a moment. 11 million South Africans, more than 50 billion rands, not mobilized by government, not organized by corporations, but built through common purpose, trust, discipline, solidarity, and community. Stokvels are not merely financial institutions. They are schools of leadership. They are also support systems. Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka started one such Stokvel called Mpilongso, meaning we belong, a whole UN Undersecretary finding time for Stokvel. That is Phumzile, the doctor of Manqoba. Program director, many know Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka as former minister, a former deputy president of South Africa, and former executive director of UN. The world knows her as a global champion for gender equality, but many of us know another Phumzile, just Phumzile, with no titles. We know the woman who has remained grounded despite occupying the highest offices, the woman who listens, the woman who shows up when you need her, the woman whose house is always filled with family, friends, needy children, the woman who lifts others as she rises, the woman who works very hard, the woman who is a wife, a mother, a sister, an aunt, a grandmother, the woman who's just the naughty Phumzile. The woman who understands that leadership is not about visibility, but about impact. Dr. Phumzile's journey is both symbolic and deeply poetic. She was born in 1955, the year of the adoption of the Freedom Charter. That laid out a vision for the South Africa we want. The vision of the founders was captured in one of the most enduring lines. I quote, "South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white," close quote. And perhaps nowhere is the spirit of the Charter more relevant to our theme tonight than in another of its profound declarations. I quote, "The rights of the people shall be the same, regardless of race, color, or sex," close quotes. At a time when women were largely excluded from leadership and public life, the Freedom Charter boldly affirmed the equality of women as a fundamental principle of a future democratic South Africa. In many respects, Phumzile's life became a living expression of that vision. Her life has been partly a struggle for those promises. Long before the titles, the offices, and the international recognition, Phumzile was a change maker. Raised in Claremont during apartheid, she chose political struggle over acceptance. She organized, she mobilized, and advocated for women and young people excluded by both racial oppression and gender discrimination. Whether in local communities, political organizations, the democratic government of South Africa, or on the global stage, she pursued the same cause, the empowerment of others. Her journey is not merely a story of personal achievement. It is a story of a leader who understood that true progress is measured not by the positions we hold, but by the opportunities we create and the lives we transform. Vice Chancellor, too often the lives and contributions of extraordinary African women have not been adequately recorded in the lexicon of our universities, our archives, and our centers of research. Their achievements are remembered in speeches and celebrated in moments, but not always sufficiently interrogated, documented, and preserved as part of our intellectual heritage. Yet, here is a woman who has worked in education, community development, civil society, government, parliament, the presidency, and ultimately the United Nations. She has helped shape the democratic South Africa we know today. Few South Africans have contributed across so many spheres of public life, and fewer still have done so with such consistency, humility, and purpose. In many respects, her life's work reflects the unfinished project of our freedom. Academia should not merely celebrate her achievements, but study them, preserve them, and ensure that future generations draw inspirations from them. Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka's life reminds us that the Freedom Charter was never meant to be confined to the pages of history. It was a living covenant, a call for each generation to advance the struggle for justice, equality, and humanity. Let's talk about migration. As we navigate our challenges, we should draw on the spirit of the Freedom Charter and the values of Ubuntu. These remind us that lasting freedom is built not on fear, division, or exclusion, but on justice, solidarity, hospitality, opportunity, and human dignity. South Africa faces real pressures, and many communities are experiencing genuine hardships. Yet our history teaches us a vital lesson. Societies are strengthened not by scapegoating others, but by confronting the root causes of their challenges. We should never forget that during our darkest years, South Africans found refuge, solidarity, and support across the African continent. As beneficiaries of that solidarity, we are called to respond to migrants with both humanity and responsibility. Compassion and the rule of law are not competing values. They are complementary obligations. The way forward demands leadership that rebuilds trust, creates opportunity, particularly for young people, manages migration effectively, and deepens cooperation across our continent. Africa's challenges cannot be solved in isolation. After all, we must build social cohesion, rejecting both criminality and prejudice, and renewing our commitment to dignity, accountability, and shared humanity. Our collective task is to build a South Africa and Africa that is more just, more inclusive, more secure, and more united. The message for young women. Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka's journey from Claremont to the global stage teaches us that leadership is not a destination, but a lifetime of service. At a time when young people face unprecedented challenges and opportunities, her story reminds us that every generation must shape its own future. As June Jordan famously said, I quote, "We are the generation we have been waiting for," close quote. Like the women of 1956, young women must have the courage to lead, to dream boldly, and to create opportunities where others see obstacles. Leadership belongs to the privileged few, not to the privileged few, but to those willing to serve. The legacy of June 16. When we celebrate Phumzile, we cannot overlook June 16 uprising, whose 50th anniversary we're commemorating this year. In 1976, it was not seasoned politicians who changed the course of our history. It was young people, armed with courage, conviction, and an unshakable belief in their dignity. They stood against injustice and demanded the right to shape their future. Many paid the ultimate price. Some of them were Phumzile's students. 50 years later, their legacy challenges us to ask, what would the youth of 1976 expect of us? Would they accept persistent youth unemployment, inequality, or violence against women and girls? I suspect they would urge us to confront the injustices of our time with the same courage with which they confronted theirs. The generation of 1976 advanced the struggle for political freedom. Ours must advance the struggle for economic inclusion, educational opportunity, gender equality, ethical leadership, and social justice. June 16 reminds us that history is often changed by those whom society least expects. Dr. Phumzile is distinguished by her unwavering belief that the advancement of women is not a women's issue alone. It is a societal imperative. Throughout her career, whether as a champion of girls' education, South Africa's deputy president, as executive director of the UN, or as a chair of her Mlambo Foundation, she consistently challenged the world to see gender equality not as a charity, but as justice. Thus, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres described her as, I quote, "a fierce advocate for women's rights and gender equality, who has helped place the rights and empowerment of women and girls at the center of progress on sustainable development, human rights, and peace," close quote. That tribute reminds us that Phumzile's leadership has always been rooted in service, ensuring that women and girls are empowered to realize their potential. Leadership lessons. Phumzile's life reminds us that leadership is not about titles or positions, it is about service. From a young teacher, community and political activist, she rose to become a minister, deputy president, and a global advocate for gender equality, never losing sight of the people she served. Her journey teaches us that extraordinary leadership often begins with ordinary acts of courage and commitment. Phumzile reminds us that no generation has ever been handed perfect conditions. The women of 1956 were not. The 76th generation and leaders of our liberation struggle were not. Yet, they changed the course of history because they chose action over hesitation. The next generation is inheriting a world shaped by artificial intelligence, climate change, rapid technological change, and global uncertainty, both challenges and opportunities. The future will not be shaped by those who wait for the ideal circumstances. It will be shaped by those who are prepared to lead, to serve, and to create possibilities where none seems to exist. And to the youth, she will say, do not underestimate your voice. Do not diminish your dreams or apologize for your ambition. Leadership belongs to those who are willing to step forward and make a difference. And Phumzile did step forward. As much as we celebrate progress, honesty requires us to acknowledge unfinished business. It is Phumzile who once again reminded us that, I quote, women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights, close quote. Too often, the advancement of women is framed as an act of generosity. It is not. Equality is not charity. Empowerment is not a favor. Women's participation is a matter of justice, and justice should never require permission. Today, inequalities remain stubborn. Violence against women remains a crisis. Economic exclusion remains real. Women still live in the margins of society. This is not something the generation of 1956 and 1976 can be proud of. The question is not whether women and young people can lead. History settled that debate long ago. The question is whether society is prepared to remove the barriers that still constrain women's full participation and the empowerment of young people. Phumzile does not wait for the barriers to be removed, she smashes them. Africa's women. Africa's future will be shaped by the quality of the people, especially its women. When African women succeed, children succeed, communities succeed, economies succeed, democracies succeed. The African Union's Agenda 2063 speaks of an Africa whose development is people-driven and reliant on the potential of women and youth. Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka belongs to that generation that displayed in real time the potential. She did not inherit opportunities, but created them. She entered rooms where she was not expected. She spoke on issues others sought to avoid, and she opened doors that had long been closed. And she once said, the future belongs equally to girls who are given a chance to dream and boys who are taught to respect those dreams, close quote. As we establish this annual lecture, my hope is that the University of Johannesburg will become a place where girls are given that chance to dream and boys are taught to respect those dreams. UJ must not merely be a place where ideas are discussed, but a place where future generations develop the courage to act upon them. The continent needs institutions that not only educate, but illuminate. UJ must be an institution that helps shape Africa's future. The legacy. As we honor Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka tonight, we are also invited to think about legacy. Legacy is not wealth, is not fame, is not titles. Legacy is what remains when our names are no longer announced or tagged. In thinking about legacy, I was reminded of Patrice Lumumba's words to his wife shortly before his assassination. He wrote, I quote, "History will one day have its say, but it will not be the history that is taught in Brussels, in Paris, Washington, or the United Nations. Africa will write its own history, and it will be a history of glory and dignity," close quotes. Lumumba understood that true leaders do not live for themselves. They become part of a larger story, a story of justice, dignity, and freedom that stretches beyond their own lifetime. In many respects, the lives of women such as Lillian Ngoyi, Albertina Sisulu, Gertrude Shope, Sophie de Bruyn, and Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka form part of our story, not necessarily his story, but our story. It is a story written not in monuments and titles, but in sacrifice, courage, and service to others. In this regard, Tatu Mandela once reflected, I quote, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." That captures the essence of Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka as a servant leader. South Africa at a crossroads. As we celebrate the achievement of Dr. Phumzile and other women leaders, honesty requires us to confront the realities of our own time. South Africa is a staggering democracy, won through immense sacrifice. Yet today, many South Africans are anxious. Young people worry about unemployment. Communities worry about crime. Citizens are frustrated by corruption, poor service delivery, and failing infrastructure. Trust in institutions has weakened. The promise of democracy remains alive, but many people are asking difficult questions about leadership. Those questions are not unique to South Africa, but are asked across the world. But they are particularly important here because our democratic project was founded on exceptional moral leadership. The generation of Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Walter and Albertina Sisulu, Ruth Mompati, Gertrude Shope, and many others taught us that leadership is not about power, it is about service. Leadership is not about entitlement, it is about responsibility. Leadership is not about what one can take from society, it is about what one can give to society. Perhaps one of the greatest challenges confronting South Africa today is not shortage of policies or plans. It is a shortage of ethical leadership at every level of society. Esteemed guests, as we mark 70 years since the Women's March, I wonder what those women would say to us today. I think they would remind us of Ubuntu, underpinned by ethics, humbleness, humility, hospitality, integrity, respect, support, care, and love. They would remind us that democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires courage, it requires vigilance, it requires active citizenship, and above all, it requires ethical leadership. In answer, we could surely offer Phumzile as the caliber of that Ubuntu leadership, from Claremont to Parliament, from Parliament to union buildings, from South Africa to the world. This would prove to them that we have maintained the conviction that leadership is a responsibility to improve the conditions of others. But would she be enough? In conclusion, it was First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt who said, I quote, "Women are like tea bags. You never know how strong they are until they are put in hot water." History has repeatedly placed women like Phumzile in hot water. And every single time, they have emerged strong with courage, resilience, and wisdom. As we honor Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka tonight, we honor more than an individual. We honor a tradition of leadership stretching from Charlotte Maxeke to Lillian Ngoyi, to Albertina Sisulu, to Gertrude Shope, to Sophie de Bruyn, to Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. It is a tradition rooted in service, courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief in human dignity. The question before us is whether we are worthy custodians of that tradition. Will we build the ethical leadership our country desperately requires? Will we strengthen social cohesion? Will we create opportunities for the next generation? Will we continue the unfinished work of equality? If we do, then the women we honor tonight will not merely be remembered. Their legacy will live through us. And let us continue to demonstrate through our actions more than our words that women do not merely participate in societal progress. Women drive societal impact. Malibongwe, thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you for that powerful and deeply thought-provoking address. Your journey and your reflections this evening remind us that leadership is not simply about the positions we occupy, but about the impact we make, the barriers we dismantle, and the opportunities we create for those who follow us. You have challenged us to consider not only the legacy we inherit, but also the legacy we are creating for future generations. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in thanking Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso. As we reflect on the words we have just heard, we once again turn to the power of music. Please welcome back to the stage the Imilonji Kantu Choral Society. Thank you once again to the Imilonji Kantu Choral Society for that beautiful performance. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this evening carries particular significance because the lecture we inaugurate today bears the name of a woman whose leadership has transcended sectors, borders, and generations. Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka has dedicated her life to public service, education, social justice, and the advancement of women and girls. Her remarkable journey has seen her serve South Africa in some of the highest offices of public responsibility, including as Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa. Her leadership subsequently took her onto the global stage, where she served as United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, becoming one of the world's leading advocates for gender equality and women's empowerment. Through her work in government, civil society, education, and multilateral institutions, Dr. Mlambo-Ngcuka has consistently demonstrated the transformative power of leadership grounded in service and impact. Her contribution continues to inspire generations of women and young people across Africa and around the world. It is therefore fitting that the University of Johannesburg establishes this annual lecture in her name, creating an enduring platform for courageous ideas, meaningful dialogue, and leadership committed to societal impact. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to invite the CEO of the Umlambo Foundation, Ms. Thenjiwe Mtintso, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Chancellor. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. MECs from Gauteng, government, chancellors from other universities, Vice Chancellor Litlokwa Mpedi, Mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Murero, Deputy Mayor of Johannesburg, Loyiso Masuku, Ambassador Mtintso, leadership of the University of Johannesburg, and all honored guests. Let me start by thanking our speaker, Ambassador Mtintso, for reminding us of our remarkable history and challenges we still face and the work ahead. I thank you with love and respect. I would also like to thank the University of Johannesburg for the honor of this lecture. I am both grateful and humbled by the honor which I share, especially with our young women, our students of this great University of Johannesburg. South Africa commemorates the 70th anniversary of the 1956 Women's March. Women who raised the bar of the struggle in every way possible. They must have expected it was not going to be easy, but they continued. They are our inspiration, and they must have wanted us to continue as women, build our country, and march forward. We have both succeeded and messed up. Today, we are having to celebrate them, of course, as we should, and deal with the many challenges of our time with resolve. Some threaten our country and our women mostly. Whatever stands before us, there's a way forward. I'm glad at this university we do what we can to forge ahead and address difficulties. We've managed to make great progress despite hurdles. After all, there'll always be problems. Hence, we say the struggle continues Aluta continua. We trust the women of 1956 will be proud of us and probably want us to do more and do better, of course. Continue to push the frontiers, inspire students, and make sure girls know without any doubt that if they all put all they have in their work, the world is their oyster. They will want us to do all we can to end gender-based violence and protect women and girls. And our men and boys will be he for she, which is a campaign of men and boys who stand for gender equality. We know we educate our students not only to excel academically, but also to be good human beings. Their success will not only be measured by their results in the world, not only by their material success, but importantly, by their positive impact in society. Our mantra is help others and make an impact in society. What they will do when no one is watching, expanding opportunities, advancing transformation, and demonstrating that excellence and inclusion are mutually reinforcing. Now, on women leading change, UJ's transformation journey demonstrates that expanding opportunities for women is central to building a stronger institution and society. Today, 56% of UJ students' population is female, reflecting the remarkable progress made in expanding women's access to higher education. Over the university's 21-year journey, we have witnessed significant progress in the representation of women in academic and institutional leadership. Today, women constitute 44% of UJ's professorate, compared with 23% at the university's inception. Women now represent 51% of senior management and 46% of the universities, and there is more. These achievements reflect not only institutional transformation, but deliberate commitment to creating opportunities for women to lead, discover, innovate, and inspire. And we've seen the positive impact women have in our university. The return on investment on women is great. The university's transformation journey gives practical expression to the ideals championed by the women who marched in 1956. Our country is going through a difficult time, and we have to roll sleeves and be drivers of the change we want to see. We cannot give up on our country, whatever we do. This maybe is the time when we as women take more of the center stage. When we as women do not only hold half the sky, we can express and stretch our hands on even further. As the women said in 1956, Muswadi utshwara thipa ka bohale, and no one is irrelevant in this fight for South Africa. This also calls on us in the country and us here at UJ to build on our successes, continue to be better and better. Our challenges include taking concrete action to address women at the bottom of the pyramid, women dealing with gender-based violence. It's been more than 30 years since the Women's Declaration in Beijing, which was one of the most hopeful moments for women. African women fought in Conference of Nations, and many government delegations were predominantly represented by men. African women fought for the girl child, arguing they are not just children, they are the girl children whose gender exposed them in some countries to special type of discrimination. They are forced to marry older men, to female genital mutilation with the approval of parents. They may be killed by their own brothers if they refuse to marry someone, and they have not chosen for them. Let me read that again. They may be killed by their own brothers if they marry someone they choose for themselves. They may be overlooked when it's time to go to school, yet an educated girl is a powerhouse. Now in 2026, our rights are under threat. One gains are under threat. While most countries have passed a lot of good legislation to protect women, they have not fully implemented those laws, and many still have many discriminatory laws. We scrapped discriminatory laws here in South Africa, and we have done a lot to implement the laws, but we can still do more. And then there is our youth, whose numbers are growing at an unprecedented rate. Their growing population presents both an enormous opportunity and an urgent challenge. If we fail to create pathways to education, economic opportunity, dignity, and meaningful participation, we risk turning this demographic strength into a ticking time bomb that should concern every one of us who has the power to make a difference. Just as the emancipation of women cannot be addressed piecemeal, neither can the challenges facing our young people. These issues are interconnected. We must take a comprehensive approach, one that empowers women, equips young people, creates opportunities, and builds societies in which everyone can participate and thrive. We used to be a country of big ideas, recognized even internationally. We need to go back to that bold thinking. Our universities around the country are capable and able to also play a pivotal role. As I close, I want to salute our academics here at home who work hard to make this institution thrive. I'd like to thank Imilonji. They never fail to inspire us. Yes, George Mqadana, you rock. Thank you, all of you, for braving the cold and being here today. Our ever-engaging speaker, my sister and my comrade, the ambassador of note, I can tell you, I'll so zoom confirm, she never stops to put the country first. Our chair of council, thank you for steering us here. VC, your kind words for bringing us to this point with determination. You have humbled me and our UJ leadership team, my family and friends. Thank you for a memorable evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thenjiwe Mtintso, CEO of the Mlambo Foundation. It is an extraordinary privilege for the University of Johannesburg to establish this platform in the name of Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. We look forward to the conversations, ideas, and generations of leaders that this annual lecture will continue to inspire. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for the CEO. As we approach the conclusion of our final program, it is fitting that we acknowledge the many individuals and partners who have contributed to making this inaugural occasion possible. For the vote of thanks and closing remarks, it is my privilege to invite a member of the University of Johannesburg Council, Professor Anna Motiti, to the podium. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Prof. Anna Motiti. All the best.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and Chancellors of other universities present, members of the University of Johannesburg Council, Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Johannesburg, Professor Litlokwa George Mpedi, and Vice Chancellors of other universities present. Our distinguished guest speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso, and members of the diplomatic corps present. Members of the Executive Council of the Gauteng Provincial Government, Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Dada Morero, Deputy Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Councillor Loyiso Masuku, members of the UJ Executive Leadership Group, leaders from business and civil society, members of the academic community, staff and students of the University of Johannesburg, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to an end of what has been an exceptional and deeply meaningful inaugural lecture. On behalf of the Council of the University of Johannesburg, I wish to express our sincere appreciation to Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso for delivering such an insightful and thought-provoking public lecture this evening. Your Excellency, your reflections grounded in a lifetime of courage, leadership, and public service have enriched this occasion and given profound meaning to the theme that brought us together: women driving societal impact, legacy, leadership, and the future. We are deeply grateful to you. I also wish to express our profound appreciation to our Chancellor, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, for graciously agreeing to have this annual lecture established in her name. Chancellor, the establishment of this lecture is a fitting recognition of a life dedicated to public service, social justice, education, and the advancement of women and girls. Chancellor and Ambassador Mtintso, we are inspired by your lives of service. Your respective journeys remind us of the extraordinary contribution that women have made and continue to make to our democracy, our society, our continent, and the world. The timing of this inaugural lecture is particularly significant. As we have heard this evening, it coincides with the 70th anniversary of the historic 1956 Women's March. I do not wish to repeat what has already been so eloquently said, but the significance of that historic march and its contribution to the advancement of women's rights. What I would like to emphasize is that while the struggle for gender equality is far from over, we stand on the shoulders of the courageous women of the 1956 generation. We remain profoundly grateful for their courage, their resilience, and their sacrifices. Their actions helped shape the South Africa we know today, and their legacy continued to challenge each generation to do more to build a society in which women enjoy equality, dignity, opportunity, and freedom. I would also like to extend our collective gratitude to our Vice Chancellor and Principal of the great University of Johannesburg, Professor Litlokwa George Mpedi, that he leads, for the vision and the commitment that have brought this inaugural lecture to life. Vice Chancellor, we thank you for your leadership and for ensuring that the university continues to create platforms for conversations that matter. To the entire organizing team and everyone who has worked behind the scenes to make this evening possible, from program coordination, protocol, and production, to communications, hospitality, technical services, security, and logistics, we extend our sincere appreciation. These occasions may appear seamless to our guests, but we know that behind them are many people who have worked tirelessly and attended to every detail. Thank you. You continue to make University of Johannesburg events truly memorable. Ladies and gentlemen, our gratitude also extends to each and every one of you. Thank you for leaving the comfort of your homes, particularly on a cold Johannesburg winter evening, to join us for this historic occasion. We do not take your presence for granted. To our chancellors and vice chancellors from sister universities, members of the diplomatic community, representatives of government, leaders of business and civil societies, our partners, colleagues, students, members of the media, and all our distinguished guests, thank you for your continued support of the University of Johannesburg. Finally, tonight is not simply a conclusion of an inaugural lecture, it is the beginning of an enduring tradition. This is the first of what we intend to continue annually here at the University of Johannesburg for many years to come. We hope that Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka annual lecture will become an important platform through which our country, our continent, and the international community can reflect on the progress we are making in advancing the rights, representation, and status of women. We commit ourselves to inviting speakers of stature and standing who will challenge us, inspire us, and enrich our understanding for the issues confronting women and society. We will continue to convene these conversations because we believe that this is an important part of the role of a university. A university such as the University of Johannesburg must be a place for dialogue, conversation, and reflection on matters that are critical to the future of our humanity. The rights, roles, and status of women in South Africa and across the world are unquestionably among those matters. May this annual lecture continue to grow in stature and influence. May it continue to bring together courageous voices. May it continue to challenge our thinking. And most importantly, may the conversations we begin here translate into meaningful action and lasting societal impact. To our Chancellor, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, to our guest speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso, to our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Litlhokwa Mpedi, to the leadership and council of the great University of Johannesburg, and to every distinguished guest who has joined us this evening, thank you for being part of this historical inaugural occasion. Good night, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Motete, for such powerful closing remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the conclusion of the formal program of the inaugural Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka annual lecture. And before we proceed to the networking cocktail dinner, may I kindly ask that we allow our principals, invited dignitaries, and guests seated in the front rows to exit the auditorium first. We kindly ask all other guests to remain seated momentarily while our ushers facilitate their departure to the stretch tent. Thank you very much for your cooperation.